Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Buon anno, I think is what that is in Italian. Welcome to Wild Wild Podcast. I am Adrian Smith, and I am joined from a mere few hours away, as opposed to like 15 hours away, by my co host and partner in crime, Rod Barnett. Hello, Rod.
Hello, Adrian. How are you doing in the new year?
Great. It is nice to be back in the UK,
Ah,
and which obviously makes things slightly easier for scheduling podcast recording and all of that.
I know. While you were in China, it was a whole. You were having to like, it was separate. They were days apart. It was insane. We were trying to
Yeah,
figure out.
it
We were
was.
having to like look at a calendar and coordinate
Yeah,
times. It was bizarre.
and yeah. So I'm back here for a couple of months, and we'll see what we can do. Apologies, because I know everyone is just looking at their phones every day, thinking, when is the next episode coming? And I do apologize to for keeping you all waiting. But hey, Christmas, etc., etc. But yeah, we are back with the final episode of this. I say mini season, but it's kind of dragged on for a little while longer than I anticipated. But that obviously is just because of normal life getting in the way, and also as usual, Rod and I have got a healthy sideline in bonus feature creation, which also takes up some time.
True.
So I don't know if there's anything since our last episode now that we can tell people about. Have you got anything coming out that's been announced or anything like that?
Um, Nothing that's been announced. I mean, everybody's getting really excited this first week of the new year because they're getting their copies of Exorcismo, the gigantic 19 film collection from Severin, which
Oh,
has
yes.
which has started to ship
Yeah.
out. And I've got a couple of commentary tracks on that particular set. One for A Bell from Hell, which is a an unassailable classic of Spanish horror, and The People Who Own the Dark, an absolutely brilliant little gem with Paul Naschy basically being a supporting actor in that. It's a Leon Klimovsky film and is brilliant. And so it's been really
Oh,
gratifying. It's been really gratifying getting notes and little comments from different people when it's shown up, and they've already some of these people have already listened to the commentary tracks, which stuns me that they can
wow.
get to something that quickly and are making comments about them specifically. And I'm just like,
Mm.
wow, I'm impressed. And by the way, Severin, where's my copy? So
Well, there is that, yeah. That can sometimes, those complimentary copies over there, it's great that we get them, but you sometimes have to wait.
yeah, yeah, not a big deal. I'll be thrilled whenever it shows up. But it is,
Yeah,
God, there's so many movies on there I can't wait to see.
yeah, definitely. We did a commentary together for the film Young, Violent, and Dangerous,
Yep.
which was announced by Raro uh, just before Christmas, but that release has been delayed. So that's coming out at some point later this year. And we did another one for Raro, but I don't think that's been announced yet.
It hasn't been announced, and I think that one's been pushed back as well. They seem to be
Yeah.
bumping up against a release from a
Mm.
different company, so we'll keep our lips zipped on that one.
One thing I did that has, it's kind of the news has leaked out, although it hasn't officially been released by the label. But there's a UK label called Treasured Films, and they are putting out a nice set of the film. What's it? It's a Maurizio Merli film. Is it called Manana?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Manana?
I knew it under the title "A Man Called Blade."
Yeah, that's the one. A Man Called Blade. So they were going to release that, but the BBFC in the UK won't allow them to have a certificate unless it's cut.
Ooh,
So they are releasing it uncut in America and not releasing it at all in the UK. That's the outcome of that. So
mm.
it's popped up for pre-sale on things like Diabolic DVD. So that's how I know it's. So the news is out there, but I don't think the label have actually announced it yet. But anyway, that's coming out at some point in the next few months. And I wrote an essay about Maurizio Merli for the booklet on that one. Great actor, who was gone too soon, unfortunately. And so that was fun to dive into his career again and look at some of the things that I'd missed, and so on. So yeah, so there's that. Another thing, I don't know whether I mentioned it last time because of all the gaps that we've had, but Vinegar Syndrome brought out Troll 2
Yeah.
on 4K, and I had an essay in that, although I still haven't got my copy either. But all being well, I am in the booklet for that one. I wrote an essay about Filmirage, which is what actually inspired my choice of our film today. We're
Okay.
going to
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
Filmirage today. So that's kind of where I was coming from with that. And I don't think there's anything else in terms of stuff we've done.
No,
That's
I
probably
don't think
enough,
there are
isn't it?
things that we can talk about yet. That's true. Yeah.
No. Mondo Macabro just announced a bunch of stuff on their podcast. I'm assuming you're probably in there because you usually are.
Yes, yes. It's a safe assumption. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, exciting times as always, and more commissions in the pipeline. So yes, it's great. We get to just talk. I mean, basically, I will talk about films to anyone who will listen, whether that is being recorded or in the room.
Yeah.
So it's pretty great that we get this opportunity to do all this extra stuff. And speaking of which, I know you were unwell for December, but did you still manage to get any podcast episodes out, or do you have anything
Um.
coming out soon that you want to mention?
Well, we did our usual holiday horror episode. This time around, we did "Who Slew Auntie Roo," which
Yeah, I
which
didn't
is a
realize that was a Christmas movie.
well, it's set at Christmas, but I don't know that I would necessarily, as we talk about in the episode,
Wow.
I don't know that I would necessarily call it a Christmas movie, but it is set. And like the day, like the 2 days before Christmas, and all the way through the day after Christmas. I mean, that's
Well, that's good enough. That's good enough for me. If it's set at Christmas, it's a Christmas film.
yeah, 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 and it certainly works because as a Christmas film because of its setting and because there's the Christmas tree and the Christmas celebrations and the whole nine yards. Um, I think that I kind of fall down on the if the film would be significantly different if it were set at a different time, then yeah, it's a Christmas movie. But that's the only full episode I think we got out in December. But we have another one on tap, which I'm about to put out here at the end of this week. I don't know when we'll get this episode out, but we recorded the three of us, the ones who do the holiday horror episodes. Troy Gwynn and John Hudson and I asked them, I gave them an assignment to put together a list of their 5 favorite films that they discovered for the first time in 2025. Doesn't have to be
Oh, nice.
yeah, it didn't have to be a film released in 2025. And so they dutifully put together a list of 5 with a couple of honorable mentions, and I came with a list of 17 films because I cannot stop myself. Yeah. So that episode will come out here in the first week or so of the year, and then I've got some other stuff on tap, including I've got to get an episode recorded on a particular very bizarre Korean kaiju film, and some other stuff like that is coming down the pike.
Ooh, which Korean kaiju film are you talking about?
Well, it is one called Space Monster, and I'm about to mispronounce this hilariously. Wangami or something like. Every time I hear them say it in the film, I realize I will never speak Korean.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think I've seen that one, but I'm always open to more kaiju.
Well, it was apparently not an easy thing to see for a very long period of time. It came out like the same year that the other Korean monster movie from the 60s came out, Youngari, which did pretty
Oh yeah.
darn well, but this one apparently fell through the cracks and did not do nearly as well. And the from what I've learned, it was not easy to see until just a few years ago, because apparently in 2022 the Korean Film Archive only had the only remaining copies of the film and held occasional public screenings. Um, then they made it available for viewing on demand, and since then it would be hard to call it a good film, but it is one that's fascinating if you're a fan of
Oh, good.
kaiju movies. Yeah.
All right. Cool. I'll look forward to that. Good stuff. So that's coming out this week.
No. We haven't recorded the episode on that one yet, but the look back at 2025 will be out here in the next few
Oh,
days.
yeah. Okay. Great. There you go. Rod is a podcast machine.
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that in December. In December, I did take some sick leave.
Yeah. Well, I think you're allowed. And obviously, when we started this podcast, which is coming up on, I think maybe 4 years ago, maybe, or 5 years. I can't remember. I need to look.
How long have we been doing this?
Look back at the episodes. 4 or 5, anyway. And there's no sign of us ever running. I think we could safely keep making episodes of Wild Wild Podcast until we are both drawing our pensions.
This is true.
We're never going to run out of cult Italian films to talk about. That's for sure. So we are, so this final episode, we were talking about women in Italian cinema, and we focused previously on 2 quite well-respected directors.
Uh-huh.
And today I thought we would mix things up a bit and talk about Donatella Donati, who is actually very important in certainly what we would consider cult Italian cinema. But unfortunately, she's so unrecognized in terms of her contribution to cinema. She does not even have her own Wikipedia page.
Oh, wow, yeah. It's true.
Which is not good, I don't think. So we'll do what we can today to share what little information there is out there about her. And of course, it gives us a great opportunity to talk about one of probably the most successful, certainly one of the best films that she is associated with. And that is none other than 1987's StageFright. Here is some cool synthy music. Simon Boswell. The music is quite fun in this film.
Yeah.
And he was a bit of a go-to composer for Filmirage, who I mentioned before. So, but before we dig into too many specifics, I'm assuming that you know StageFright quite well. I mean, even I'd seen this one before.
I had even rewatched it just, I think, about 6 or 7 months ago. Just because for some reason, and I don't know why, the 4 horror movies made by Michele Soavi, the director of this film, I get the urge periodically to rewatch all 4 of them. And StageFright is the one that I came to last, and it is much more of a straight ahead slasher film than anything else that he made. Mm-hmm. And so I have a tendency to want to revisit it just because I enjoy watching an Italian take on the slasher genre, and doing a pretty good job of faking being in America at the same time.
Yeah, we're in Boston, I think.
Well, no, that's just it. I have spent way too much mental effort attempting to figure out where this movie really is supposed to take place, because they say at one point in the dialogue that one of the actresses in this play that they're putting on is from Boston. So I don't think they're in Boston, but it's hard to tell from the dialogue if they're referencing the fact that they're in Boston and she's from there, or whatever it is that they're doing. So I'm not sure. I think that they may be trying to pretend that they're in New York, but we're not given nearly enough clues. And for all we know, it could be Baltimore. Who knows?
Yeah, and I mean, where would you be putting on a play like this?
Literally
and expecting to
nowhere but
find an audience.
you would be putting this on nowhere but in the fertile imagination of a filmmaker. That is about it.
Oh, I love the whole play thing is hilarious. There's a bit where one of the actresses is describing it to somebody as being an intellectual play, and I cracked up
Which is
at that. I'm like,
exactly what,
really?
yeah, that's exactly what filmmakers making trash tell themselves to keep going forward. Yes.
Yeah, it's it's like in I just went to see the new version of Anaconda, where it's Jack Black and
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd making going into the jungle to make their own version, and they so they're writing the script, and then every so often they'll talk about yeah, but what is it really about? And they both look at each other and say themes, and like that's their shorthand for this isn't important. This isn't just trashy horror. This is about something.
This is about
Themes.
something, man.
And I just got that when she said, "Yeah, this is an intellectual play." I'm like, themes. Oh, the play is hilarious. It's so 80s.
Yes.
That whole opening 5 minutes is brilliant. It's like a Motley Crue music video or something. It's like really just. I mean, the production values are great in this film. It's so
Oh
fun
yeah, the
visually.
neon, the bright lights, the fashions being worn, especially like you say in those first few minutes where it's you're looking at it and going, okay, so her clothing tells us she's a hooker, and and then she starts dancing, and you're like, okay, so hooker dancer hooker, we're not sure.
Yeah, and then Marilyn Monroe is playing the saxophone on a balcony.
Yeah, yeah. Which don't
Which
get me
is
wrong,
absolutely
all
hilarious.
kinds of certain, shall we say, symbolism there, but the strange aspects of this only really start there because one of the okay now I'll break this down and for people who may have gone through this pathway themselves while watching lots of Eurocult cinema, which is that there is this thing whenever you start a movie that you've never seen before, you're watching the first few minutes, you're trying to, whether you realize it or not, assess whether or not you're going to be able to enter the world of this film, or if you're going to be slightly removed from it mentally the entire time. And so what you're judging in those first few minutes is how well they're selling the reality of the fiction that they're putting in front of you. And so sometimes filmmakers, they're aware that that's what's happening, whether you're conscious of it or not as a viewer, and so they will play with it. And luckily in this film's case, they are playing with it heavily because the film starts, as so many films of this type do, by pretending that we're just starting the movie and that we're not watching some stage production. And then, a few minutes in, they break the fourth wall and show us that we're definitely in a stage production, and this is something being performed intentionally for an audience, or potentially for an audience one day. And so we are then let inside the reality of the film itself. So this film, I love the beginning of it because it's always like I always imagine the perfect split of that for the first time you see a movie like this being 50-50, where, wow, it's a little, it's like overlit. In other words, there are elements where you're going, I don't know if we're supposed to be thinking this is a real place or not yet. And the perfect split is 50-50, where part of you is trying to go along with the film and part of you is questioning it. And then when they break it, it has to be something interesting. And of course, where they break it in this is where we have someone leap out of an alley and do a flip on the ground. And you're like, okay, we're definitely not a reality. So good.
Yeah.
But I love movies that start that way because it really is playing with that desire in an audience to accept, to have the willing suspension of disbelief exist, to go along for the ride. And they're kind of rubbing your nose in it at first, like, ha ha ha, is this real or is this not? Are we playing with you or are we not? And I enjoy that the movie starts that way, and then to be honest, without spoiling anything, it ends that way as well.
Yeah, we should talk a little bit about the movie first and then focus on Donatella Donati and her role. But yeah, like you mentioned, so Michele Soavi, this was his first film, and he went on to direct, well, like you said, 4 kind of horror classics. The last good Italian horror films, arguably.
Yeah, I mean, we could make arguments back and forth, but yeah, I do think Della
Yeah,
Morte Dell'Amore, or Cemetery Man as it was called in Eastern territories,
yeah,
or I should be say, I guess we should say in the West. Uh, Honestly, the last probably great horror film to come out of Italy. I mean, there were some
yeah,
good things made in the 90s and the early 2000s, but it really was as if that film was the door slamming shut. It's like, we all know, almost all the
yeah,
lights are out. We got one more great one out of us, and let's just move on. So,
yeah, yeah. Because one of the reasons why he stopped making films for a while was for family reasons, I believe.
yeah, yeah.
So he sort of stepped away from directing for a while. But yeah, he made these four great films: Stage Fright, The Sect, which I have to admit I'm not particularly keen on. The Sect,
Oh, really? I
but I
really
do
enjoy
really
it.
like that. Yeah, maybe I need to try it again. I do love The Church. I think that's great, and
Uh-huh.
obviously Cemetery Man is on another level. Um, and you can see, because obviously with those films, particularly Cemetery Man, is a kind of natural end point of his trajectory as this sort of dreamlike, artistic um, director, and we get a sense of that with this film,
Yeah.
with some of the imagery, particularly in the final act.
I think Soavi benefited a lot from being one of Terry Gilliam's assistant directors on The
Mm,
Adventures of Baron Munchausen, and that's where
yeah,
that's where he was able to pull together a lot of the sensibilities and imagery that then he
yeah,
carries over into Cemetery Man. And it's one of those things where you can almost see a one to one from some of the images in an 80s Terry Gilliam film bleed into something like that movie. And
yeah,
it's something, as you can see in this movie, it's stuff he was already playing with, but it gets more and more refined as you get to practice it with someone who's been at it even longer than you. So,
yeah. That's true. And also, at the same time that he did Stage Fright, he was second unit director on Dario Argento's opera,
uh huh.
and there are some interesting connections between these. Stage Fright is like a low budget version of opera in many ways. There's a lot of connections. If opera was just set in one location and had about six people in it, then
Yeah, if opera
you
had no
know,
budget,
yeah,
which is what we're tantalizingly dancing around here, which is that
yeah,
this is a low budget film, but it is it is a low budget film that does not really feel as if the budget is hampering the story being told. Uh,
no. I mean, it's very sensibly set in one location. In
uh-huh.
the some of the synopses call it a theater, but it's not a theater, is it? There are no seats.
Oh, no, this is
There's
just like
no.
a
It's a sound.
rehearsal
It's like a
hall.
sound
Yeah,
stage. Yeah,
yeah,
it's like a sound stage with a temporary stage, because when the stage that they're working on is not a permanent stage.
no.
When you see her crawling underneath it, and it's all just, there's all those gaps in the boards and everything. So it's basically a sound stage, which is probably an actual film sound stage.
Well, I think one of the alternative titles was even the Soundstage Massacre or the Soundstage Murders. So,
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
yeah,
It
yeah,
went under a few titles because it's also called Aquarius.
yeah, yeah.
And then in France it was called Bloody Bird, which is quite funny, I think.
Which is
Um,
odd.
yeah, but yeah, you've got this basically one location, and I'm assuming all the stuff in the dressing rooms and the corridors are all just the dressing rooms and corridors of the soundstage. And then when you get the sequence in the hospital, that's probably just another corridor in this soundstage. So they do a great job of utilizing this one space. But
Yeah, yeah.
the film was a pretty big production for Filmirage, the company making the film. On average, Filmirage films took 3 weeks, and this one was scheduled for 3 weeks, but actually went over budget and doubled the schedule. It took 6 weeks, so it was a big deal for Filmirage, but it basically went on to be one of the most successful films they ever made. So, and also it immediately priced Michele Soavi out of making more films for them
Yeah.
because it was so successful. He was immediately getting more money from other people. and they couldn't afford to keep him. Kind of like Roger Corman. If you did well for Roger Corman, you didn't work for him again.
Right. So Soavi went on to his next two films were produced by Argento. So
Yeah. And I was watching an interview on the Blu-ray that I have of StageFright, where Soavi says that his goal in life was to become second unit director for Argento. He had no ambitions to direct himself, but it was offered to him, basically. So that was why he did it. Because otherwise he'd reached his goal. His life goal was to work for Argento, and he'd done it.
well, I think it's interesting that we even he started out learning the ropes of filmmaking as a young actor in the first place. I mean, you can see him in City of the Living Dead and several other places, and he even gives himself a small role as the younger cop in this movie.
Yeah, the cop who thinks he looks like James Dean.
Which I think is hilarious. That if that's not a director who's incredibly self-aware and making fun of himself, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Now, of course, most people, I imagine, would know Michele Soavi from his performance in Alien Terror.
Now, I don't know that it would be most people, but you and I are well aware of him as the man who somehow, for some reason, carted a typewriter down into a giant cave. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what a film. Amazing. But yeah, he had a great, he had quite a good run as an actor, but I think he always really wanted to be involved behind the camera.
Yes, indeed.
Which is how he began to get involved with Filmirage. So why don't we talk about Filmirage? I would say this is probably the best film that Filmirage made.
Well, that's an interesting
What you
idea.
think about that?
I've not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I really enjoy this movie, but I'd have to look at a comprehensive list because I have a lot of affection for a lot of the output of Filmirage, and so
That's true. I mean, it's no Ator the Fighting Eagle, is it?
oh, oh, you hit me where it hurts, man. That's just it. I have a lot of affection for a lot of the stuff that they produced. I don't know that there's much of it that I would set above this film as far as just quality from edge to edge. Because this, you could damn this film with faint praise by saying that it's aiming at a low target and strikes it very, very much a bullseye. But at the same time, that's what you hope for every movie, is that what it aims to accomplish, it does. And this movie certainly does. And as much as I have a lot of affection for a lot of the other Filmirage stuff, not always hitting the target. There's a lot of missed strokes. No. There's a lot of arrows. There's a lot of arrows and squirrels by accident. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So Filmirage was the company that was founded by Joe D'Amato, whose real name was Aristide Messicesi. And he teamed up, basically founded this company with Donatella Donati. So she was the daughter of the Italian producer Ermanno Donati, who he made loads of films over a career that lasted about 30 years. He was one of the producers on I Vampiri and The Terror of Dr. Hitchcock. That was one of his. He then ended his career as an uncredited producer on D'Amato's Beyond the Darkness, that amazing kind of remake of The Third Eye, which is a really interesting. I actually wrote the booklet essay for that when it came out in the UK about 10 years ago or so.
Cool.
Quite a shocking film in a lot of ways, but very entertaining. But yeah, so that may be working on Joe D'Amato. That was Joe D'Amato's film. And so Joe D'Amato had known both Donatella and her father for a few years. Donatella was working on films she'd done all kinds of stuff in the industry. She had worked as a continuity, sometimes credited as script girl. Yeah. So she got some experience through the 70s doing that. Notable titles include The Anticristo, which is quite a film.
Well, it's one that I thoroughly enjoy, and it's one that you have to, I guess you really kind of have to be a fan of that bizarre genre, or you're just not. It's not going to work for you. But yeah, I enjoy that one quite a bit.
Yeah, and then she had a long run of working with Joe D'Amato in the 70s as an assistant director
Uh-huh.
on some of the Black Emmanuel films. She was assistant director on Emmanuel and the Last Cannibals and Emmanuel in America. What a film that is.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it
and
is.
that, yeah, Beyond the Darkness, Anthropophagus. Well, that's once we get to 1980. That's when she was working with him with Filmirage. But for a good few years before that, she was working as assistant director or second unit, uh, all kinds of stuff. She just basically turned her hand to whatever job needed doing
Well, yeah, I mean,
by the look of
her
things.
title for a lot of films when she started working with Filmirage was production manager most of the time.
Mm,
So she,
yeah,
we're talking about A Tour and its sequels, 2020 Texas Gladiators,
yeah,
Endgame, all kinds of films of that type. She was even the production manager on a weird little film called Django Strikes Again, which is the official Django sequel, which is one of the weirder films you'll ever run across trying to pretend that it's a Western. But she wrote screenplays for different movies as things went along.
just to mention, Django Strikes Again is going to be in our next season. There's
This
a
is
little
true.
tease for everybody.
I'm already looking ahead. But
Yeah,
the fact that her talents behind the camera seemed to just be whatever as you put it, just whatever seemed needing to
mm,
do. If it was a box that needed to be checked, apparently she was the person who'd spent enough time around
yeah,
filmmaking to be able to check the box and get things done.
hmm,
So always
yeah,
going to be you're always going to be prized and well thought of if you can be more than an assistant director, more than a production manager, more than just a
yeah.
script writer. If you can do all of these things depending on what's necessary at the time, you're going to work. And she did.
Hmm. Yeah, so they formed this company together in 1980, and she was particularly skilled, apparently, in the finance side of things. Obviously, D'Amato was very experienced as a director and cinematographer, and she was more on the sort of production and finance side of things. So they made a good team. They actually formed two companies, one called PCM International, and then Film Mirage, which is the better known one, really. D'Amato had done a little bit of production in the 70s, but now he could have a lot more control over his own work, and they became a kind of mini studio with loads of different directors coming to work for them. But they did initially start off with Anthropophagus and those films that they made in where did they go? They went somewhere in the Caribbean and made four films back to back,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Erotic Nights of the Living Dead and
Porno
all those,
Holocaust. Yeah.
yeah, all those delightful films. Yeah, so but he developed this in-house team with composers and writers and directors and with Donatella as the main kind of force to actually getting the films made. Like apparently, she used to go to the States regularly to sell their films to get distribution over there. She would also be on set for the films that they were. She would arrange to these deals with different states to shoot films in
Yeah, yeah.
America. For the Film Mirage did a lot of, and then she would be the on-set producer. So she was there when they made Troll 2.
And live to tell the tale. Yeah.
Yeah, and Beyond Darkness, La Casa 5, which stars, well, one of the stars of which is David Brandon, just a couple of years after starring in Stage Fright. But yeah, so she was a really important part of the company and really kept the company going for a good, well, more than a decade, really. Although things did they got into some financial trouble and legal trouble around the mid 90s, unfortunately, which sort of with what the film that actually sunk them was The Quest for the Mighty Sword, believe it or not.
Oh wow, really?
But yeah, that ended up in legal trouble and questions. Although they did continue making films after that for a few years, but they had a good 10-year run. And like you said, there are so many Film Mirage films, and you can find something entertaining in all of them, really.
At least in my opinion, yes, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, apart from if you had to say you had a favorite, if we discount Stage Fright, although it
Oh
is
man,
probably the best one. In, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, I love all of them.
it
Like we've
is. It's
mentioned,
difficult.
things like 2020 Texas Gladiators,
I mean, I love that
um,
movie. I truly
all
do.
kinds of stuff. Yeah,
So that one might
and
float
obviously,
to the top.
yeah, they produced films for Umberto Lenzi and Lucio Fulci, and then of course, as we've said, Michele Soavi. But yeah, so unfortunately, I can't tell you that much about, other than saying what she did and that she was involved in the finance. It's really hard to get any kind of personal information about Donatella Donati because, the obvious one, she doesn't have a Wikipedia page. She doesn't appear to have ever done any interviews either. I can't find any if she did. If anyone out there has seen or heard or read an interview with her, please let me know because I've been unable to find anything. So, yeah, it's a shame because obviously your Filmirage were a really important company in terms of the 80s in Italian cinema.
Especially the late '80s. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, they were producing films as early as, like what, 81. I mean, with Anthropophagus,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would be,
Hmm.
yeah, that would be 1980. But by the time you get to '86 with things like Absurd and
Yeah.
11 Days, 11
Hands of
Nights,
Hands of Steel.
Oh yeah, Hands of Steel. See, I'm almost always going to default to something like Ator because I'm such a fan of that genre. But
Yes,
2020 Texas
exactly.
Gladiators is a blast, and uh,
Yeah.
I get a lot of fun out of the horror movies they were making there right at the end of the '80s, like Witchery and Ghost House.
Yes.
I'm not going to claim they're great, but I do like them. So.
Of
Oh,
course, yeah.
I wasn't aware that it was Quest for the Mighty Sword that really kind of almost did them in.
Hmm.
That's a real shame, but
Well, yeah, it's to do. I told the story a little bit in my booklet essay, but basically there was a legal case because a lot of money was paid by some Americans for the distribution rights, and it seemed a bit suspicious as to how much money
ah,
was being handed over, and the yeah, so creditors got involved, and it was a messy case, and kind of lost them a lot of money. As a producer, so we've mentioned she had lots of different credits. She's only actually credited 3 or 4 times, depending on how you read the credits, as the producer herself. So she produced Absurd, which was the kind of sequel to Anthropophagus.
kind of, but not
Um,
really. Yeah.
yeah, and she also produced Warrior Queen, which again is on our list for the upcoming season. Uh, Stage Fright, and then the last one she's listed as producer was 1990, when she produced Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good segue because we haven't mentioned him by name yet. But one of the other main heroes of Film Mirage was George Eastman,
Yeah.
and he kind of wrote and directed Metamorphosis. But
Yep.
George Eastman, also known as Luigi Montefiore, is his real name, he wrote the script for Stage Fright, and we love him on this podcast. We must have talked about him loads of times.
Love him to death, and it is. You will search high and low throughout the credits of this movie for his name and either his actual name or George Eastman. It doesn't matter. You will hunt high and low, and you will start to wonder if we were crazy, but we're not. He's there. He was responsible for it, and
Yeah,
word is he was also the guy who, in most of the scenes, was in the bird headdress,
yes, because he was a
which
big
is
guy, right? He's really tall,
he's tall. Yeah, he was very tall.
and I love that he does. He seems to be very open at doing interviews. I've seen a few interviews with him on Blu-ray extras, and he's so funny.
He really is a raconteur. He's got so many stories to tell, and he's very
Yep.
good at doing it. And whenever there's an interview with him, it's well worth your time because he clearly enjoyed working in cinema, with all its ups and downs, and so you're going to get
Yes.
something you're going to get something interesting out of him every time.
Yeah. According, I'm just looking it up. According to the IMDb, he's 6'6",
Yeah,
and then with that owl head on as well. Yeah, he's a huge guy, and so yes, apparently that is him, and he was very good at writing to order. So he would be told by Joe D'Amato, okay, we've got this much money, this much time, what can you, or whatever. And so he knew because this was for Michele Soavi's first film, he
yeah,
wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So that's why he said, right, we'll just write something in one location. So he wrote this specifically to be a film that could be shot in one location for a first-time director. And he, I mean, he did the job. He nailed it.
it's hard to argue with what was with what was produced, because I mean, unless you really just don't like this type of film, in which case I don't know why you're bothering to watch it in the first place. This hits all of the targets that it's aiming at, and it does its job very well. There are nits to pick along the way, but my goodness, they're very very minor, and it's fun to watch someone who uh, was behind, who is behind the camera, and learned how to make a movie while making movies. Pick up on
Yeah.
all the tricks of the trade, and employ them as effectively as they're employed here.
Although I think I was reading it in Troy Howarth's book. Interestingly, he's written about this film in his Giallo books, which is, I don't know whether that's controversial. Is this a Giallo or
I
not?
think it gets down to hair splitting about giallo.
Yeah,
Where does the it's always controversial. But
yeah,
as opposed to, is it just a slasher or is it a giallo? And it's like, honestly, you could argue that slashers are a version of giallo. It just really kind of depends on how you want to
yeah.
approach it. So
True. But he points out in there that there's a lot of similarities between this and The Killer Reserved Nine Seats,
yeah,
which is a sort of slightly supernatural slasher film from the 70s, which is great as well. But
very
that is
well. Yeah,
also
well worth
about
seeing.
people
Yeah.
who are locked in a theatre and being killed off one by one. But I was just going to mention, I was looking in, because I haven't found any contemporary reviews for this film. I've been looking and I've been unable to find any, even in Italian newspapers.
Really?
There's not that much. Yeah, I found one. But anyway, I was looking through my books and I discovered that in the book Darkening the Italian Screen by Eugenio Ercolani,
Uh-huh.
uh, Ercolani, I should say, he's got an interview with Giovanni Radici, and he's a great guy. But he talks a bit about this film, and he says, "Oh yeah, so he was asked to look at the script. So a lot of the dialogue, all that sort of, particularly in the opening act, all the bitchy dialogue between him and the other actors behind the scenes, that's all his dialogue. He put that in. He said that Michele asked him to do that because he had worked a lot in the theatre, so he knew what actors were like. So that sense of realism and sort of campy comedy coming in, that wasn't actually George Eastman's doing."
Well, I'm glad it's there, because it adds immeasurably to the
Yeah,
characterizations.
it's funny. He also says, incidentally, because he talks about how good Michele was, that he had a real passion for horror, uh, but he's not very complimentary of the cast. He thinks that the lead actress, Barbara Cupisti, she was only really cast because she was Michele's girlfriend at the time, and he thinks the cast are pretty mediocre. He says there were a lot of dickheads working on that film. He,
Well, that would not be the first time that Giovanni Ribisi
yeah,
was
I know,
was
so funny.
was, shall we say, dismissive of his
Yeah,
coworkers on films. That was far from the
he
first time.
Yeah, he mentions the actor whose name was Robert Gligarov, who played Danny. He says he's somebody I would have gladly thrown against a brick wall. And then there
Jeez.
was then there was David Brandon, who, let's just say, wasn't the most pleasant of people, but at least he was a competent enough actor.
Yeah, you can't complain about Brandon's performance. He does a good job.
No, Brandon is great, and he because he did a few things with Filmirage. I just
Uh-huh.
watched it fairly recently, the Beyond Darkness, which was the second film that they shot in Utah after Troll 2, where he plays a kind of tormented priest.
Yeah, he has a big role in that film. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really intense. He's very good. And that whole, the opening scene in that film, where they are on death row, is really actually amazing, especially when I discovered that it was shot on a real death row. And those guys in the background were real death row prisoners. And they filmed it with the actress who plays the witch sitting in the real electric chair. Like, that's production value right there. Amazing.
It certainly is. I see. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I know that it is funny that Giovanni has a tendency to run down the a lot of the other actors that he works with, but I think his complaints about Barbara is it Capesti,
Yeah, something like that.
Capesti.
Capisti.
Considering her long list of credits, I mean I don't know. I mean remember she was pretty memorable in New York Ripper, and
Uh-huh.
went on to be in
Cemetery Man again.
in opera and Cemetery Man. She worked with Lamberto Bava
Yeah.
on one of the high tension films, uh,
Oh, yeah.
and so
No, I think she's very good in this. She plays the final girl really well.
yeah, exactly. And I think that I mean, there are I always get a kick out of Giovanni Ribisi. Don't get me wrong,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
when they allow him kind of off the chain a little bit to
Uh-huh.
be kind of a bitchy asshole, or just a flat out
Yeah.
asshole. That's when it feels like
Hmm.
we're really getting into some wonderful territory for him as an actor. But I think everybody does a
Yeah.
pretty decent job. There's
Yeah.
a certain there's a certain quality, and I don't know if this would pertain to the fact that they want that they took longer than was necessary for a film of this type. I get the feeling that there was some working through of this stuff before the cameras started. In other words, I feel like there may have been, strangely enough, some rehearsal in that rehearsal space,
Yeah.
making
Hmm.
everybody feel a little bit more tight when they started actually shooting the stuff. So
Hmm.
I'm fairly happy with the performances in this, and that's not something that's necessary in a slasher by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, I mean, one
Hmm.
could argue that if you were constructing a bingo card of things to look for in your standard slasher, crappy acting would be one of the major center boxes. But in general, here this is pretty well done. There are some duff moments, but the uh, uh, the cast, I think, acquits themselves as well as could be expected. It is interesting to know that they took twice as long as they probably should have to shoot this thing, though.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was worth it because it did go on. It was so successful, and it received an award. I found an ad for it in Variety in February 1987. It won the Avoriaz Festival 1987. The jury and the international press were unanimous in
Uh-huh.
considering StageFright the most frightening film of the year. And so it was awarded first prize under the fear section of their festival, and that was a film festival in France, and so they made a big deal out of that in a lot of the advertising. Um, I found an article in La Stampa from June 1987 that talks a bit about it, about it receiving this award, and how it was that Michele Soavi, who'd previously worked with Dario Argento and Lamberto Bava, had proved that he was faithful to these older masters of horror.
Oh well, no,
Um,
that's definitely true. Yeah.
yeah, it's quite good actually. This is the closest I could find to a contemporary review in the Italian press, A maniac, and it's also a plot summary because we haven't really told I'm assuming everyone who's listening has seen this movie, but
Well, they may
you
not
know,
have. Maybe we should give them some outline. Yeah.
yeah. Here's a plot summary translated from La Stampa. So, a maniac murderer escapes from the hospital and enters a theatre where a group of young actors and dancers are rehearsing a musical inspired by his story and promotes himself as the real protagonist.
Okay, that's
That's not entirely
yeah, that's not how
true.
that. Yeah, That's not how that. Let's fix that by pointing out that there is a there this troupe of actors is rehearsing a musical play of some sort, and I forget the title of it within the story. But they're going about this, and there is there's a death, and there's a death. One of the actresses has actually injured herself and goes to a nearby hospital, which turns out to actually be a mental hospital, where a rather notorious serial killer is currently incarcerated while being treated.
Conveniently, he was an actor.
Conveniently, and so he manages to escape, make his way to the theater, which I think it's hilarious that, of course, the way he gets to the theater is by hiding in their car, which is it's like every slasher cliche in the world. Well, how did he get here? He hid in your car.
Yeah.
He strapped himself underneath your car. He swam there. Who cares? So at any rate, he gets there, and then more murders ensue. The producer and director of this particular play decide, hey, we could really make a killing if we rewrite this slightly and say that the whole thing is based on the actual real life killer who was responsible for the death of one of the people involved in this production. So people being rather mercenary, they seem like they think that's a really good idea. And then, of course, more killings continue because while they lock themselves into the place to continue rehearsals overnight, the killer is inside as well, and things that you might think would happen start to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically it. But I like the way they say that in this description, that he does promote himself to be the lead actor in the play, and there's a really interesting and it's quite satirical, I suppose, that there's a sequence where the director is directing the killer to kill the actress on the stage, without realizing that it's the real killer and he's really killing her. I don't know, but you could sort of analyze, and perhaps people have, you could analyze this film as being almost a commentary on the audience appetite for violence, or blah blah blah.
And there was talk about that kind of stuff. That was seeping into horror in the 70s and 80s, where the people seeing the society without the film, mirroring certain things, and the kind of back and forth of what it's I like to always joke years ago that it was chicken or the egg, chicken or the egg, chicken or the egg, shove the egg back up in the chicken. It doesn't matter. It's things are built out of this. But this movie makes little nods toward that, but it's much more interested in just being a thriller. With some really inventive kills, some really amazingly tense sequences. I have to say, the pickaxe death, the first on-screen murder. The pickaxe death is astonishing. I think that the way they pull that off is just and I'm going to use a phrase that most people would think pertains to much larger stuff, but I'm going to say it's movie magic, people. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, because there are two different ways of doing it. There's one where you build it up.
Right.
You see the killer coming, and you're like, oh no, blah blah blah, what's going to happen? And you get close-ups and back and forth. Or then there's just the out of the blue pickaxe in the face that you had no idea was coming.
Right.
Because we didn't even see this wasn't Chekhov's pickaxe. We hadn't been shown a pickaxe earlier in the film. Like, where did the pickaxe come from? It's just suddenly there and it's in her face.
It doesn't matter, Adrian. It doesn't matter where the pickaxe came from, because the pickaxe is now in her face. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think it's great. You're pointing out something I wanted to just briefly touch on, which is, yes, there are the pickaxe murder is the one where you're just suddenly like, it's just there, and you can't, it's just, you can't turn away because you have no idea what's about to happen. And then throughout the rest of the movie, he goes back and forth. The film goes back and forth between the slow build and the tension and the cutting back and forth and the stalking and those kind of things,
Yeah.
where just suddenly violence erupts.
Yeah.
It's really nice because you're never sure which type of thing the movie's going to pull on you. And so Suave
Hmm.
is showing, at least, unless we can, attribute it to the structure of the kills built within the script on the page. This is a way to keep your audience off balance as to what to expect, and it's just very well done.
Yeah. Yeah. So this, absolutely. So just to go back to this article in La Stampa, so after describing what happens, it says the plot is barely an outline. The actors are merely performers. What counts is the fast-paced, plastic, emotional style and a mastery of the craft that is highly unusual among young Italian filmmakers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it means by plastic. There might be a mistranslation.
Well, plastic seems to me, from what I can tell, plastic is the way it rings to my ear is a recognition of the artificiality of what we're being presented with. In other words, we're kind of watching performers within a film performing.
Mm.
The two layers. So there's a plastic reality
Yeah,
of
true.
the reality they're committing to while practicing, doing their job. So that's what it felt
Yeah,
like to me. I'm not sure.
yeah, fair enough. But yeah, so but yeah, despite that, the I've not been able to find any. I don't know how good a release it had. It did pretty well in Italy, where it was known as Deliria, and it did pretty well in France. I saw one place, I think it might have been in Variety, said that it had been picked up in Japan, so it must have done fairly well,
Must have.
um, but just not with critics because I hardly found barely any notice at all. Alan Jones, the great Alan Jones, who is now in his early 90s probably, and he's the guy that created and runs Fright Fest, and he reviewed the film at the time in Starburst magazine. But unfortunately, I don't have the book that he just brought out of all of his Starburst reviews, so I can't tell you what he thought of it. But yeah, not much else. One other thing I did find that's interesting, maybe interesting to me anyway, is when the film was released in Italy. It was sent to the film censors in 1987, March 1987. Donatella Donati herself went to speak in support of the film. So the film was banned for under 14s, basically. So the film was passed. They but only could only be seen by anyone 14 or over, which surprised me because in this country it's an 18, but in Italy they decided it's only under 14s that are banned from seeing the film.
Huh.
But no
That,
cuts or anything like that. It was
yeah,
passed uncut in Italy.
that's what I was about to ask, was did they force any cuts
Mm,
on it? But apparently not.
no, but yeah, under 14s couldn't see it, which is considering some of the pretty good gory effects, I think is reasonable. What's your favourite, if you had to pick one, do you have a favourite special effect in the film?
Oh, that's a good question. The one that I'm most amused by is not really even a special effect. So I'll cheat and do two answers here. First of all, I love in any film where something happens and there's suddenly a lot of feathers falling around the set, and we
Uh-huh.
have multiple edits, and the feathers are falling way longer than it would be humanly possible for there to be feathers jumped up in the air at that point. And we have that happens near the end of this, where in the third act we have a sequence where feathers keep falling as if someone is tearing pillows apart, just off screen above the edge of the frame, which is probably what was happening. So I'm always amused by that, but that's just boy, that's an idiosyncratic thing to be fascinated by as far as effects. But I will say that as far as special effects that impress me. I'll just say that the way, without spoiling the specifics, if you haven't seen the film, the way David Brandon's character goes out is impressive as hell.
Yes. Again, yeah, kind of, because he's almost built up to, because basically he's the director. David Brandon's
Yeah.
the director of this production. He's a complete a-hole
Uh-huh.
and very unlikable, and also very selfish. But his character kind of has an arc, and he does change and becomes more heroic, and actually is trying hard to help
Yeah.
save everybody. So there's a point where, and also the lead heroine, Alicia, she's kind of, because she's got a sore ankle, and at one point she's unconscious, so she's kind of out of it for a while, and he becomes the hero. So then it's a real surprise when some stuff happens to him that you might not expect.
Yeah, and it's very well done. It's an effect that really works. And you know, as an old hand at trying to figure out or knowing from behind the scenes footage of different movies how certain effects are created, you know, you can figure out how they did it, but it doesn't change the fact that while it's happening on screen, you're just really shocked, and it's completely believable when it's happening. It's really impressive.
Mm-hmm. It was, you can tell as well that it was shot in a bit of a hurry, because there are some camera shots that are out of focus, but they've just kind of used them anyway.
Yeah.
And some of the sound, it was clearly, unlike a lot of Italian films, this one appears to have actually been recorded on location. It doesn't
And
appear to have all
sometimes
been
that
dubbed
shows.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the sound is a bit ropey.
At least in the first,
but I kind of like that.
In about the first 20 or so minutes. Sometimes it can be I honestly did this time around, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything, I kicked on the subtitles, because there are times when different actors' voices become slightly inaudible. And I was just like, I just want to make sure, you know, if I'm
especially when they're all shouting at each other.
Yeah, I've got to do a book report on this film, so I want to make sure I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, especially when they're all shouting at each other in a room, and it's a bit echoey because some of them are further away from the mic.
Yeah.
And stuff. But that kind of adds to the realism, because obviously the film was shot in English. It was like many of the Filmirage films, they had an eye towards the American market and wanted it to appear that it was an American film. But there is an Italian dub, and if you get the new Blu-ray, the one I've got was put out by Shameless a couple of years ago, and that does have the stereo Italian track, which obviously was entirely recorded in post-production, so sounds a lot better than the actual recorded sound. But it all adds to that sense that although what we're watching is very well done, it was still a first film. It was being made in a bit of a hurry on a relatively low budget, so I don't really mind all that stuff.
No, not at all. This is an effective film, and you can see why this got Soavi. You can see why this got Soavi, more movies to do.
Yeah, but on the Shameless Blu-ray, there is an interview with Michele Soavi, a 40-minute long interview where he's talking about the film, and it's almost as if in tribute to the production values of this one, it keeps going out of focus. So they're filming him. Michele Soavi comes from a sort of noble family in Italy, and he lives in this incredible palazzo, basically. So they're filming him in his garden, but the focus is not good on that interview, I have to say.
That's terrible.
Yeah, so I thought that was quite funny. It's just like it was in tribute to the cinematography. But anyway.
We should point out that once Soavi got back into making film, all the stuff he's been making for like 2 decades now has been for Italian television. And he is one of the go-to guys for Italian crime movies and Italian crime television series. He works a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a fairly recent trip to Italy, I had the TV on, and something came up that he was like an advert for a new thing from him. So yeah, he's a pretty busy guy, working in television. And of course, I guess we haven't mentioned, but one of his most notable, if brief, on-screen credits or appearances, I should say, was in Demons, where he's the guy giving out the cinema tickets at the
Oh
beginning of
yeah,
Demons with that
this is true.
with
This
that
is
silver
true.
mask on his face, which is what a film that is. But anyway, we could talk about Michele Soavi and Stage Fright all day, but let's just briefly return to Donatella Donati before we go, because this was really the reason to come and talk about her. I don't know if you've got her list of credits in front of you, but is
Yeah.
there anything in there, um, anything in there that we haven't mentioned that you want to give like an honorary mention to, that she worked on in some way, or because she also she wrote screenplays as well,
Yes, she did.
although mainly for the kind of lower budget end of things. But yeah, is there anything that she did?
Well, her name doesn't end up on the screenplay credits until really until you start getting into the 90s. And a lot of that is
Yeah,
stuff that I've never seen. Some of it's direct to video stuff. Some of it is stuff that I've just not had the opportunity to see.
you
Like
mean you've never seen the erotic adventures of Hercules?
sadly, no. I would watch it. Don't get me wrong. I would need quality subtitles though.
Yes.
But as a writer, it's hard to get a handle on the stuff that she. I mean, because one gets the suspicion with her talents being what they were, that she had a hand in several scripts along the way, just not credited as such. But
Hmm.
when I start looking back at the stuff where she was the assistant director, I start noticing some really interesting stuff like Black Cobra. You mentioned the Emmanuel stuff, but
Yeah.
uh, to be honest, the fact that there's not some lengthy interview with her where they get her to talk about erotic Nights of the Living Dead is a near criminal thing. The assistant
Yeah,
director
that's
of
a shame,
Erotic
isn't it?
Nights of the Living Dead is like, whether no matter what you think of that movie, and for a lot of people that is a one-time watch type of film. Uh, if you're
Okay.
involved in Anthropophagus, Beyond the Darkness, and Erotic Nights of the Living Dead, not to mention Porno Holocaust, I want to know what your thoughts as a woman are about these pieces
Yeah.
of film.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Emmanuel in America as well would be interesting to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
her opinion on that one. One film that she was production supervisor on, which again we have a lot of love for on this podcast, is Joe D'Amato's Endgame,
Yes.
which is one of the best of those post-apocalypse films that we talked about a couple of years ago. I'd also like to mention a film I haven't seen, but it's on my list of films I want to see. That she did production management on the film Top Line
Oh, I've seen it.
with Franco Nero as a kind of, yeah, that's a kind of UFO Indiana Jones kind of film.
Oh man, it is hard to describe. Top Line, there's a Blu-ray of it, and I
Okay,
proudly
of
own it.
course.
And
Right.
it
I
is a
haven't got it
difficult
yet.
film. It is like three different exploitation films got lost and stumbled into a blender. Um, and I'm not kidding, man.
You're
It's
selling it
like,
to me. You're selling it to me.
yeah, I mean, it's there's a discovery of a UFO in the Colombian jungle, so you get roaming around the jungles. You get some extraterrestrial weirdness. There's some Nazi crap. Uh, there's it's got one of the weirdest scenes in the movie involves being chased by a bull. I mean, it's something you kind of gotta see.
Well, yeah, I'm sold.
It's it's
I'll
it's
have to
it's bizarre. It is. It's
yeah, it's a film I've been aware of, but I've never seen it. And then just spotting it again just now, I thought, yeah, that's one I need to make an effort to find.
that's one way to put it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, it,
But of course, as
yeah.
we've mentioned, we've got a couple of her films to look forward to in our next season. Perhaps this is a good time, as we need to wrap things up here, to mention what that is.
Oh yeah.
So the eagle-eared among you will have already heard us mention Warrior Queen and what was it? Django Rides Again?
No, Django Strikes Again.
Strikes Again. I knew it was one of those. What do both of those films have in common? I'll give you a few seconds to try and work it out.
Wait, hold on. Do 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 do. The
Yeah.
Jeopardy thing. Everybody, make your guess.
Okay, and the answer is we're going to do a deep dive into the Italian films of the British actor Donald Pleasance,
Yes,
who
yes.
spent basically most of the 80s working in Italy. And we've talked about a couple of the films that he made before, like Warrior of the Lost World, for example.
Uh-huh.
But there are loads. I made a list of about 20 films that he made in Italy, and a couple of things on TV. Um, so, yeah, we're going to try and go through some of those. A couple of which I think, I mean, there are some that he's done that you've also talked about on the Bloody Pit before. Like, didn't you do American Rickshaw?
Yes, yes, definitely
I
did.
think you did. That was one of his. But there are so many more that he made. So if any of you listening, if you have a favorite Donald Pleasance 1980s Italian film, let us know as I start working our way through this list. There are some big hitters in there, like Phenomena.
Yeah, it's true.
So
Yeah.
we'll be doing an Argento film.
And I think that once we get into the films he was making in Italy in the '80s, we should differentiate. We should explain when he left to go back to America to shoot another Halloween sequel.
True, yes, yeah, but there are some great ones in there. He also worked for Ruggero Deodato,
Yep.
Phantom of Death, and yeah, loads of good stuff. So that is the plan. We're a little bit like when we did our Luigi Cozzi season. We're just focusing on one guy, and it'll give us plenty of opportunity to talk about him and his life and the other films that he made around that time, and just generally chat Donald Pleasance, who I mean, I just always enjoyed his performances. Whenever he turns up in a film, I feel like I'm in safe hands. And yeah, it'll be really fun to work our way through some of the better known ones and also sort of forgotten ones that he did during that period.
And boy, are there some forgotten ones.
Yeah, perhaps for good reason some of the time. We'll find out. We will find out. Anyway, so that's the plan. When we will start is anyone's guess. But of
True.
course, we will start as soon as we can. But anyway, so that's what's coming up next. So let us get in touch. Let us know what films you would like us to cover, and we'll see what we can do. But that's it for now. We've talked about some interesting people, I think, with these last 3 episodes, and I mean, it's not very balanced at all, and I know that, but that's not our fault. That's just because there are not that many women making films in Italy in the sort of time period that we tend to cover. There are more female directors in Italy now,
Yeah.
thankfully, but we don't really do modern films, so I guess that's our fault.
It's not the focus of the show.
Exactly. Anyway, it is what it is. So yeah, that's it for today. That's it for Stage Fright. One last honorable mention is in the closing credits. I don't know if you noticed this. It's all the names. It says the cast are listed alphabetic. What does it say? Alphabetically.
Oh no,
There's
I
a
didn't notice
misspelling.
that.
There is a misspelling of alphabetically, which
This reminds
amused
me of
me.
the
I haven't
classic,
noticed it before.
do not entry.
Yeah, exactly. So I put a picture of that on our Instagram because it amused me so much when I was looking back at it again. Anyway, right, we are done. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for sticking with us whilst we've been kind of not here for a while. Please do get in touch with us. We love hearing from you. You can like and subscribe and follow and share and all of the stuff that people ask you to do on all the podcasts. We've got a link tree that you can find in the show notes where you can see all the different things that we do, such as merch, which I will admit I haven't updated for a while, but I promise I will eventually. We are on YouTube, so you can always play the episodes on there. There's a link in the link tree for that as well. Oh yes, the other thing, of course, is I nearly forgot, we're part of the Film Stories podcast network. Film Stories is also available as a magazine here in the UK, so there are not that many film magazines that you can actually buy in shops, and Film Stories is one of them. So if you like film and you like magazines, then you can always find a copy of that if you're here in the UK. Otherwise, you can check them out online, and you can also go to the Film Stories Podcast Network page to see all the other podcasts that they do. Okay, I think that's enough of a plug for Film Stories, and enough from us. Rod, thank you again for doing this.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad we're back in the saddle.
Yeah, and we'll try and get at least another couple of episodes done before we have to tackle the massive time zone difference again.
I'm looking forward to talking about Donald Pleasant's films. He made a lot of really interesting movies in Italy.
Yeah, me too. Okay, right. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye for now.
Bye bye, everyone.